Hello and welcome to your DIY haversack kit. In your kit you will have your piece of strap, which will be 5 inches wide and 55 inches long. You can see here that it's not cooperating with me. Here we go. 5 inches wide and 55 inches long, and it's just regular cotton canvas. And then you're going to have the body of your bag here, which is 14 inches wide and 40 inches long. And you can be creative with that and make that bag whatever size you want the body to be and whatever size you really want the flap to be based on the fabric that's there. But I'm going to give you recommendations. And also in your kit, you will have thread. Now you won't have this color. I'm using this color because I want you to be able to see the stitches as I'm going along in this video. And forgive me, but I'm going to assume that you don't know anything about sewing. So don't get irritated with me. Just for those that don't know how to sew, I want to try to give you as much information and not assume that you know what we're going to be doing. So I have my length of thread here. It's about 36 inches long. I have my needle. Now we're going to thread the needle. You'll see the eye of the needle here. There's even a piece of thread stuck in it. We're going to put the thread through the eye of that needle, and then we're going to knot one end of the thread, which I've already done this, but you're going to knot one end of the thread. Let's see if I can do that. And you just simply wrap it around your finger and pull the end through. It's real simple. It's a knot. Just like you tie a knot in a shoelace or a piece of string, you need that to anchor your thread. So then I'm going to stop this and we're going to go ahead and thread the needle, and I will pick up in a minute. Okay, so I've threaded my needle. Let's see here. You're going to be using, now it looks long and it looks like it might be doubled, but it's not. You only need a single layer of thread in this application because you're just hemming. This is our end with the knot in it. And then in the instructions, it tells you to fold over one end of your strap by a 1/2 inch, and you'll see that this is indeed a 1/2 inch. There. And then I have stitched this already using something called a running stitch. And basically you're just weaving, you're gonna pull, this is where your knot is. And I started in one end and I just held onto the fabric. And I pulled my needle up here and I went down here and up here and down here and up through the back of the fabric and down here. And I just wove my needle in and out of the fabric. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it won't be your first try. So don't get frustrated. Just if you want to practice on some scrap fabric, you can, but this is a haversack and this is very utilitarian. This is something that you're just doing to get the idea of how much work went into actually hand sewing something. And I also did the other end. You'll see here, the other end is done as well, right here. And then we're going to come back and we're going to iron or finger press. Finger press means to just do this. The heat of your finger will press the fabric. Linen does this much more efficiently than cotton. But I'm going to take this over to an iron and I'm going to iron the full length of this strap, that 1/2 inch. And then I'll show you what we're going to do with that. Okay, so if you're partnering with your home ec class, what we're doing is we're just adding some heat, and you'll put it on your cotton setting. And you just, if you've never worked with an iron before, it's not difficult. And this isn't completely hot, so that's why it's kind of sticking to the fabric, but we're just gonna iron this nice 1/2 inch seam. And if you need to mark it so that you know what a 1/2 inch is, you can do that. But I've done this a lot, so this is easier for me. Okay, so now you're gonna end up with about a 2 inch strap when you're done. So, one second here. This fold like this, and we only have to do the 1/2 inch on the one side because this is going to come up and it's going to cover this raw edge. but this ends up being about 1.5 inches. You can see that. Here's the 1.5 inch mark. And then we're gonna iron it again. Or you can finger press it, or you can use the edge of a ruler, just like this. You'll see there's a metal edge on this ruler, and I can just kind of guide the fabric and go down. There's lots of ways you can press things, and this actually works pretty well. So if you don't have an iron, don't fret. It's just, this is what I have, so this is faster for me. You can use a paper creasing tool, anything that you have. And there's that. And now we're going to take this edge and we're going to pull it over to where you get about a 2-inch wide strap. And you'll see that that's 2 inches. There's our 2-inch mark. And you can see my ruler's been used a lot. So now we're just going to press this all the way down. And again, you can use the edge of the ruler, you can use a paper creasing tool, you can use your finger, whatever you have that works for you. And then we're going to come back and we're going to use what's called a whip stitch. And now you see here, the reason I had you hem this edge like this is because I figured this would be easier for you. I'm going to tuck this random thread in there to have a nice finished edge on your strap, rather than trying to tuck that raw edge in after you had already stitched all this. That was for your peace of mind. And now we're going to start sewing. Before we start sewing this, it did occur to me, I do a lot of things by eye, and that comes with practice. I've been sewing since I was 5, and I'm now 58, so that's a long time. But remember, we measured this, and we said that this was approximately 1.5 inches. It's not quite, but it's close. And if you need to, when I folded this up, we ended up with 2 inches. But if you need to, say, draw a line on this side, even with a number 2 pencil, so that you get a nice even 2 inches all the way down. And I can double check. I've got my 2 inches. And if it's a little off here and there, that's okay. See, that's a little wide there, but that's all right. That's 2 inches. That's a little less than 2 inches. So this is why, you know, you want to make sure, see there, it doesn't take much to fix it. And now we're going to come back to this end. We're going to just kind of tuck these loose threads in here and try to make this end line up as evenly as you can. Use your fingernail, or a pin, or the needle. You can do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in between these 2 layers and bring my needle up. And you'll have to push a little bit because this is heavy fabric. But we're going to bury that knot. We'll just take our needle and push it down in there. And then we're going to do what's called an overcast stitch, or a whip stitch. So you're going to catch a little bit of the fabric here and come back up on your fold. And it'll take a little practice to get the hang of it. And it won't be beautiful the first time you do it, but that's okay. And you're going to be using thread that is the same color as the fabric, so it will hide your mistakes. And you'll see that we're just catching this fabric here, but we're not going all the way through the strap. And you'll get the feel of that. And if you goof and grab the other side of the strap, that's okay, because again, you're going to be using thread that's the same color as your strap. And we're just going to go the full length of the strap. And you'll get faster as you go. And you may have to, if you get to the end of your thread and you still need more thread, what you're going to do Oh goodness, this is going to be difficult. Is if you run out of thread, you're going to knot this. You're going to just grab some of the fabric there, pull the needle through, and then you're going to grab this loop like this and pull it tight. And you're going to do it one more time. You're making a knot to secure your thread. Tighten it up, and then you're gonna bury this. You're just gonna bury it between the two layers. You're not going through this layer. It's just between the two layers, and come up. And then you'll just trim this off right close to the fabric, not cutting the fabric. So like this. Hang on to your thread, use your scissors, and just snip it, and it'll disappear under there. And then when you start your next length of thread, this is how you knot it. Hold it between your thumb and your forefinger, wrap it around, and you're just going to roll it and secure it with your fingernail. See there? You just get a knot. And then I always trim my end just so I don't have extra thread. And then you're going to just start again. So you're going to bury your knot just like we did before. You're going to start here and pull it through, and see your knot will go right between the two layers of fabric. And then you just keep going. And you just keep going until you're all the way down to the other end of the strap. And you're going to tie a knot at the other end, and then we'll go on from there. All right, so and I'm sorry, I apologize. Started a video with that. I was having some difficulty because the thread that I'm working with tends to want to twist. The cotton thread you're going to be working with doesn't normally do this, but I'm using, this is a very ugly beeswax bar, but beeswax was used for a lot of things in the 18th century, and one of the things was dressing thread. And what I'm doing is I'm putting the thread across the beeswax bar and just drawing the bar down the thread like this, pulling the thread, and all I'm doing is I'm putting a coating of beeswax on the thread so that hopefully it will behave a little bit better. But this also gives me an opportunity to show you how to thread the needle. I'm going to trim off this part this thread's kind of frayed. I'm going to grab this needle, and I'm going to show you how to thread the needle. I showed you what the eye of the needle looked like. Now I'm holding the thread as close to my fingers as possible, and then I'm going to push the thread through the needle. You may have to just do this. You have better eyes than me, so it might be easier for you, but there you go. And you leave a little bit of a tail so you're not constantly pulling your needle out of, or your thread out of your needle. And now I'm just going to keep going, and you'll see that I've, you know, we've done, I don't know, a foot maybe. So we have 3 more feet to go. So I'll see you at the other end of the strap. All right, so I've finished the strap, and I have it laid out here. Basically, the way it's going to get attached to your haversack. This will be against your body when the haversack is done, and this is the side that will show. So, and I did go ahead and whip stitch this end, which you can certainly do, and do it all the way across if you like. Again, your thread's going to be the same color as your canvas, so it won't show like this does. All right, now we're going to move on to the body of the haversack. All right, here I have the body of the haversack laid out. I have, this is roughly 16 inches from this bottom fold to the top here. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold this back, and we're going to hem this the 1/2 inch like we did the ends of the straps. And again, you can finger fold this, or you can press it with an iron if you have access to an iron, or you can use your paper creaser or your ruler or whatever you have, but we're going to hem this this 1/2 inch because this is going to be the inside edge of the body of your haversack, and I will show you that when it is all done. We're going to use the same running stitch. You can use a different stitch if you like, but the edges of this are going to get secured, so this will be encased in those seams so it will stay. And this really won't ravel much because it's on the inside of the bag. You can see that. This really won't ravel much. All right, and I will come back when we have that hemmed. Okay, so here I have the body of the haversack, and this is approximately, we have our hem here for your top of your bag, and I have it lined up, and you'll see over here I have a tape measure, and the body of the bag is at approximately, like we line this up here, it's at approximately 15.5 inches. So overall the bag will end up being about 16 inches long. I wanted it to be longer so that you could put more stuff in it. This is a bag that this size I was just assuming would be something that would be suitable for what you guys are doing for your history lesson. Most haversacks would carry, you know, a good amount of stuff, but you know, you can only put so much in there based on the tensile strength of your strap. Tensile strength meaning how much weight it will hold. So now what we're going to do is we're going to press these edges so that we can come up with, if we flip this over, this is where our strap's going to go. It's going to go here and here. This is the top back of the bag. And let me grab my strap here. You're going to end up stitching your strap to the top back of the bag, very much like this. You know, you're going to come in a little ways because remember we still need to have seam allowance for the side of your bag. And here's the other. And when you're doing this, make sure that your strap's laid out so it's not twisted. And we're going to do this one on this side. So you're going to attach this. It's going to be in about an inch and a half maybe. Yeah, about an inch and a half. And you're going to have it be about 2 inches. So if we come back here, you'll see that this is down from the top of the bag about 2 inches. And this is about an inch and a half. We can move that so that it stays. So there's about an inch and a half. Actually, we're gonna, you know what? I think we're gonna go more like an inch and a quarter. Oops, sorry. The strap doesn't want to behave. So this is about an inch and a quarter. And then this is still our 2 inches. And then we're gonna stitch. We're gonna go all the way around in a square. All the way around, going over these stitches as well. We're going to stitch it to the single layer of the top of the back of the bag. And I will shortly here show you how to lay that out so that you can see what I'm talking about. Because you don't want to stitch through all these layers. You only want to stitch through this one layer, just the top back of the bag. And then we're going to come back and we're going to go across this way. And we're going to go across this way. This is called an X-box stitch. And what this does is this anchors your strap to the back of your haversack so that it pulls correctly when it hangs off your hip, off your shoulder. All right, so I will be right back. All right, so I have this laid out flat. This is the outside of the bag, This is the inside, or sometimes called the wrong side of the bag. And you'll see here, we've got, this is our hem. We talked about that. This is our hem of the top of the bag. This here is the bottom of your bag. That's the fold for the bottom of your bag. And I did iron that, but again, you can just finger crease that. Here is the top back of the bag. See, we're down to one layer, and this will be your flap when we're all done. And this is where you're going to attach your strap. And note that my seam is facing me. It isn't like this, because if you do that, when you wear your bag, everybody will see the seam, which if you would like it to be that way, that's okay. But ideally, you want it to be like this. And like I said, we're gonna stitch in a box all the way around. I was also told that that's sometimes called a parachute stitch. And then when we're done with that, we're gonna make an X on it. And then we're gonna come over here and we're gonna do the same thing on this side. Stitch in a square and then do the X. And I'm gonna do that with what I call a back stitch. So you're gonna go down through the fabric and then right back up and then come back to where you went down with the needle the first time and take a stitch and then come up, then go about an 1/8 of an inch and do the same thing. And what happens is it loops back on itself, so it secures the fabric much better than just the running stitch. The running stitch was fine for this because this is going to get anchored again. And if you would like, I can show you an example of that in one moment. All right, and I'm also going to show you again how to thread the needle. And with this time, we're going to use the thread doubled up, and this is what doubled up means. You won't leave the tail. You're going to come down here and you're going to knot both ends of the thread together. Wrap it around your finger, roll it down your finger, and make the knot. And you don't have to worry so much about hiding this end because it's going to be inside your haversack. So we're going to start, we're going to go underneath, and we're going to come up by about, I don't know, about 1/8 of an inch under the top edge. And what we're doing is going to go down and do this. This is called a running or a back stitch, sorry. And I want to make sure that to keep this, and if you need to pin this, or you can staple it too if you want to, pins are preferable. I'm going to go, you see, I came up with my thread right here, and I'm going to come back just a little bit, which is why it's called a back stitch. And I'm going to do this. And we're just going to do that all the way around the square. And this will be a nice strong stitch. And it should hold your strap securely. You shouldn't have any problems. And this thread is being problematic. It likes to knot and twist, and hopefully your thread doesn't do that, because it's very frustrating. And I will show you how the back looks. So here, and then if you get really good with it, you won't even have this wiggle here. It'll just be a nice straight stitch. I'm not too concerned with it because that's the inside of your haversack. And we're going to come down here. Sometimes putting your thumb on the thread helps it behave, but you might have to make it behave with your needle. And I didn't wax this thread like I should have, like I did the other one, so. And now I'm going to not try to do that all in one stitch because this is really thick right here. And I want to come up down as close to, come up as close to the bottom. All right, now we're going to go this way and back over here. And if you run out of thread anywhere, you just knot it and draw a new length of thread and start over. and then we're gonna stitch in the X here, and then we're gonna put an X here, and I will show you what that looks like when we're all done. Here we are. We have finished attaching the strap to the top back of your bag, and you can see here's your square, here's the X, and this is what it looks like from the back. This is what's going to anchor your strap really well to your bag so that it doesn't pull funny. And we did the other side, and you can see here that my strap is not twisted. That the seam is all on the same side. Trust me, I have done that before too. It happens. So now what we're going to do, we did have this fold here that we pressed, but we're putting right sides together. So this is the outside of your bag, this is the inside, but in order to sew these side seams here, we have to do it from the wrong side. So we're gonna line up your hemmed portion of the body of your bag, and I didn't iron this real well, so it's kind of fighting me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a pin here, and I'm gonna put a pin here to kind of hold things in place so they don't shift. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna use another doubled thread because that's stronger, and we're gonna use a back stitch, and we're gonna use about a 1/2 inch. This is what I didn't really touch on this, but what we call seam allowance. So seam allowance is the amount that you allow for the seam. So this is 1/2 inch, and we're gonna do about the same on the side. So we're gonna go all the way down about a 1/2 inch. And if you're not really good with gauging that, you can use a pencil and mark that seam at a 1/2 inch. And then we'll do it this way. We'll line up those two pieces. Where's my line? Right there. And just kind of lightly draw a line there. You want to draw it so that you can see it, but so that once you stitch, it's not going to show. And I'm going to do it this way real quick just because that's easier for me. So you can see there's just a really light line there, and then that gives me something to follow. And you can pin this, you can staple this, you can use paper clips, you can secure this however you want to. I don't necessarily need to do that, but I am gonna make sure that these two edges line up while I'm doing that. So we're gonna start up here and work our way down, and then we're gonna go over to the other side and start at the top and work our way down. Same 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is what is going to put the sides of your bag together. And then we'll come back and I will show you the next step. And I'm back. I did want to touch base on one thing with this seam. This is my back stitch. Now you'll notice that this back stitch is a lot tighter than the other one. And you'll also see on this side that it basically is one long stitch. Whereas when we did the back stitch on the straps, you see how it's spaced out a bit? It's not quite so crucial on the straps, but it is crucial here on this side seam. You want the seam to be fairly tight so that you don't lose anything out of your bag, or that it doesn't loosen up or come apart. You want this to be a sturdy seam. And so when you're taking your stitch, I'm gonna try to do this one-handed here. You're gonna, when you sink your needle, you're gonna come back to where you came up, but maybe go over just a thread, and you're gonna go down like that, and then come up anyway, you'll see how I did that? I went down fairly close to this other stitch, but not exactly on it. So you'll have a little bit of a gap on the top, but you won't have a gap on the back. Your stitches will almost be overlapping, almost like a rope in the back. And that's okay. And once again, your thread's doubled up because that makes for a stronger seam. And again, you won't notice the deficiencies in your stitching, I guess is the best term for it, because your thread's going to match your fabric. And like I said, don't be too critical with yourself, because if this is the first time you're sewing, it's a learning curve, and you might hate it and never sew anything ever by hand again. But you might love it. I find that it's very relaxing, and I have more control over my project, and I have more control over where the thread goes than I do even on a machine, and I do sew a lot on a machine as well. So, all right, we're gonna finish this seam all the way down to the bottom, and when we're done, I will show you what that seam looks like finished, and then we will go ahead and do the other side. We're almost done with the first side seam, and you can see that, like we talked about earlier, that these stitches are a little bit closer together. This is a back stitch, just like we did on the strap. Oops, I'm losing my needle here. This is also a back stitch, but we spaced it out a little bit more because this isn't so crucial. But this is because you want a nice tight seam to hold your side seam together. You don't want to be able to pull too much on that. And this is the tighter back stitch. The other one we kind of took a chunk here, but we're going to come almost all the way back to this stitch. Go forward. And again, my thread is misbehaving, so I'm having to work with it a little bit. The other tip for you too is if you have your thread too long, it will cause you problems. You really shouldn't have your thread any longer than you can pull, straight with your elbow, like really coming up just to your face and your elbow, because it will knot, it'll twist, it'll cause you more problems. Yeah, you're gonna have to thread your needle more often, but your project will go much more smoothly. Sometimes you can just put your thumb on that and it'll make it behave, but it's twisting again. So we're going to come to the end of this seam, and I'm going to knot it off. And then this side, we can also come back and we can do kind of a whip stitch here to just hold. It'll just be an extra layer of security, so that if for some reason your first line of stitching breaks, like you have too much weight in your bag or something sharp is in there, you have an extra line of stitching. So once I finish this and knot it off, then I will show you how we're going to do that. So let's come down here, and we'll just go right back up with this. We'll just keep going with the thread. Normally I don't like to do that. You want to have a different length of thread, so that if something breaks or comes unstitched or whatever, it doesn't unravel your whole project. But we're going to knot it right here. Oh goodness. There we go. Now we're just going to put a knot in here. Trying to make it so that you can see. And again, my thread is fighting me, so we're going to take this loop here and we're going to make this a knot. And then we're just going to come over here and we'll pull this snug, but not so that it puckers. Let's take a stitch and make a knot so that we have a base. And again, you shouldn't have this much trouble with your thread. I just picked the wrong one and it is not liking what we're doing here. All right. And we're gonna have to pause. All right, so I had to actually remove that length of thread because it actually knotted on my needle. So now this is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna do an overcast stitch, and if you can kind of see that this just puts a little bit of a binding on the edge of the fabric. And this side isn't so crucial because this is the selvage edge, but you do want that extra line of stitching there, just in case this first line of stitching lets go for some reason. And I'm trying to do this so that you can see. And once again, my thread is fighting me. So, and this is called a whip stitch. Some people call it an overcast stitch. It just depends on what the application is, but it's basically the same stitch that we used to sew our strap. It's just at a little different angle, so it looks a little different. But we're just gonna bind or overcast this edge. That is terrible. All right, stop it again. Okay, so I'm fighting this, and I don't have to be fighting this. I should just put some beeswax on the thread. The only drawback to beeswax on your thread is that when it does knot, it is knotted probably permanently and you won't get it undone. So the object is to prevent your thread from knotting. So let's see if it behaves better this way. And look at that, it does. So we're just gonna go all the way up to the top of the bag using this overcast or binding stitch. And this will just make your bag a little stronger. And when I finish this, then we will do the other seam on the other side, and I will overcast the other side as well. And then I will show you what the next step is, because then we're almost done. We're down to the flap. We have finished our stitching our side seams. We have overcast the edge of the seam allowance on both sides, and you'll see that this looks a little rougher because this was actually cut. This is the selvage edge, but it doesn't matter. This is just to keep this from fraying anymore. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put your hand in the body of the bag, and I stick my finger in the corner and pull it up this way. Stick my finger in this corner, pull it up, straighten out the bag, and kind of smooth that seam a little bit. So, and now while I'm sewing this, your strap's going to be in your way, so just take this and tuck it down out of the way. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna hem your flap. Now, because this side has a selvage edge and this side doesn't, we're gonna do this a little differently. We're going to make this more like 1/4 of an inch. So basically what I did was we rolled it 1/4 of an inch, and we rolled it 1/4 of an inch, and we're gonna then come back and remember I was talking about your paper creaser? Well, this is my paper creaser. It's just a piece of pine, and you can just press that if you don't have an iron, or you know, you're just doing it quickly. And we're gonna come over here and we're gonna do the same thing. And I know it probably looks easy because I've done this a lot when I'm doing haversacks. And we're just gonna press that seam. I don't know if you can see that. And then we're gonna use the same whip stitch or overcast stitch to hem this. And when we're done, we're gonna roll this top edge like that. And we're gonna stitch that down as well. And I suppose what I'll do is I'll do the sides and then I'll come back and show you, you know, how to proceed to this, and then that's it. Your haversack is done. So I'll go ahead and finish those sides and come back to this top, and then I will show you how to complete your bag. So I have the edge hemmed. This is the side of your flap. And I have the other one done as well with the whip stitch or the overcast stitch. And then we have the top of the bag this is a 1/2 inch. And then we're gonna do this and we're gonna fold it another 1/2 inch. And I just pressed it with my pressing tool. And I probably won't pin it, but I would suggest that if you're struggling with keeping things in place, I would pin it. You'll have a much nicer finished product if you do that. So then I'm going to come back and I'm going to use this same stitch here and go all the way over to the other side. And then your haversack will be complete. And I will show you the finished product. And there we are. I have finished the hem on the top of the flap. And here is your finished haversack. With your straps. And you see that the face of the strap that will be over your shoulder. Now this is a crossbody bag, so the strap goes over your head and hangs across your body. The bag hangs on your left hip with the top of the strap on your right shoulder, or vice versa. But that's your haversack. And you can see my stitching. And again, this took me about 4 hours maybe to put together. A little bit more than that because I was figuring out how to show you what to do. But there you go. And you can fill it with your treasures. And hopefully you enjoy doing this project. And we'll have an appreciation for how things actually go together, and how hand sewing is, it's a labor of love. So good luck with your project. I'll look forward to seeing all of you. Maybe your instructor can send me a picture of all of you standing there with your haversacks when you're done. All right? Good luck.